I just spent 3 months straight busting my back on an oil rig. Missed my wife's birthday, but she's been gone 2 years, so who's counting? And I finally pull into the driveway of my so-called dream house, a $1.2 million mansion that's supposed to be the payoff for a lifetime of hard work. I'm exhausted, smelling like diesel and stale coffee, but all I want is to collapse into my own bed. Except there's a silver Lexus in my spot, and some woman I barely recognize, wrapped in my silk bathrobe, comes storming out, waving her arms and screaming at me like I'm the intruder. You can't park there. This is private property. My private property. The kicker? She's not some random nut. This is Karen Whitmore, the queen bee of our HOA. And apparently, she's been living in my house, sleeping in my bed, eating my food for 2 straight weeks. And now she's calling the cops on me. Let me back up a second, just so you know I'm not crazy. My name's Dex Callahan. I'm 52, been running oil rigs in the Gulf for 15 years. The job pays good money, but it means I'm gone for months at a time. My wife, Sarah, used to say I was married to the ocean more than I was to her, and honestly, she wasn't wrong. But that ocean bought us the life we wanted, a house on Lake Serenity in a place called Willowbrook Estates. After Sarah passed, cancer, brutal stuff, I cashed out the insurance, stacked it with her pension and my savings, and bought a mansion that would have made the old Dex from Louisiana laugh out loud. I snagged the place cheap after the last owner died, $750,000, about 40% under market, thanks to an estate sale and a little luck. But Willowbrook Estates? That's a world I'll never fully belong in. 847 homes, mostly old money, mostly retirees who act like the HOA board is Congress, and every mailbox is a matter of national security. I'm the youngest guy on my street by at least a decade, which made me a target the day I moved in. Enter Karen, 48, president for 8 years running, real estate agent, lives 6 streets over in a house half the size of mine and twice as bitter about it. She runs the HOA with her 2 sidekicks, Meredith, the treasurer, who signs whatever Karen puts in front of her, and Phyllis, the secretary, who's never actually read the minutes she's supposed to be taking. The harassment started before my boxes were even unpacked. $500 fine for unauthorized dock repairs, because I replaced rotten boards that could have killed someone. Then $300 for my mailbox being 2 inches too tall, and I measured it myself with their own tape. The real punch in the gut was a $750 fine for parking my Toyota in my own driveway. Karen called it a commercial vehicle because it had a magnetic sign for my company on the door, even though half the retirees roll around with work trucks or lawn service trailers and never get a peep. But all these fines, every single one got issued while I was offshore, with hearings conveniently scheduled while I was away. Pure coincidence, right? My one saving grace in this snake pit was my neighbor, Fletcher. He's 71, retired postal worker, sharper than anybody has a right to be at his age, and he's been watching my place when I'm out. So when Karen started sniffing around my house, coming by with suitcases, letting herself in, making herself a little too comfortable, he let me know. Problem was, I was offshore, no signal for 5 days. By the time I got his string of worried texts, I was already heading home thanks to an equipment failure. The first warning should have been the new white gravel crunching under my boots instead of the black asphalt I left behind. But nothing prepared me for Karen storming out of my own house, brandishing fake legal notices about abandoned property and shouting about emergency HOA powers. She claimed she had legal authority to seize my place, even tried to call in Sheriff Martinez on me. I showed her my mortgage payments, the current balance on my banking app, but her face cycled through shock, panic, and pure rage. I pushed past her, into what used to be my home and now looked like a stranger's rental. My solid oak coffee table? Gone. Sarah's lavender sachets replaced with cheap vanilla candles. Karen's makeup spread across my bathroom, her clothes mixed in with the last things of Sarah's I haven't had the heart to touch. I started taking photos of everything for evidence, and that's when Karen locked herself in my master bedroom and called 911, wailing about an aggressive man breaking into her house. 20 minutes later, Deputy Kowalski rolls up, young guy, eager to believe whoever called first. Karen comes out of my bedroom with crocodile tears and a forged caretaker agreement that even had my signature, and honestly, it wasn't a bad fake. But years on the rigs taught me, keep receipts for everything. I showed the deputy my license, mortgage records, even time-stamped photos of me at home before my last rotation. Karen tried to play one more card. She'd changed my locks for security, claimed I was notified by email. I wasn't. And the deputy, wanting nothing more than to be anywhere else, suggested maybe I just find a hotel for tonight and sort it out in the morning. So there I was, locked out of my own house, watching Karen wave from my living room window, and I realized this wasn't just some power trip gone too far. She'd planned this, down to the cheap new locks she figured she could swap out before I noticed. And you know what? That was her mistake. She underestimated what 15 years on an oil rig teaches you about surviving when everything's stacked against you. Next morning, I'm sipping burnt coffee at a Denny's, calling my lawyer buddy Marcus. He puts me on to Samantha Ridge, who does property law and eats HOA disputes for breakfast. Within hours, she's tearing through my HOA docs and finds the emergency powers clause Karen waved around is about as legal as monopoly money. Meanwhile, Karen's filing a restraining order against me with staged ring footage and her 2 lackeys backing her up. I'm suddenly not allowed within 100 yards of my own home. But that's when Fletcher steps up again, shows me security footage from his porch, Karen bringing in suitcases, groceries, even a cat carrier, and 3 days earlier, walking a guy with a clipboard through my place like she's hosting an open house. You know what I mean? She wasn't just squatting. She was planning to sell my house. The next week is a blur of lawyer meetings, calls to my bank. Turns out, Karen tried to transfer the utilities to her name, even called the bank to ask about foreclosure timelines. She filed for a utility change of owners saying I'd died. Every official record, every bill, every trace that said Dex Callahan lived there, she was slowly trying to erase. And she almost got away with it. But here's the twist. You want a twist, right? There's always a twist in these stories. This time, it's Gladys Morton, an 82-year-old retired librarian with a grudge against Karen and a binder thicker than a dictionary. She's documented every fine, every rigged vote, every suspicious check Karen ever signed as HOA president. Color-coded, cross-referenced, even photos of meetings Karen claimed had unanimous votes but barely had a dozen people in the room. With Gladys's records, we find Karen's been running this scam for years, selective enforcement, fake legal amendments, even forging entire meetings. She stole over $100,000 from HOA funds, paid her boyfriend's fake construction company, and, as Fletcher's cameras confirm, tried to file a quitclaim deed on my house using a notary stamp that expired in 2019. But it gets better. Phyllis, Karen's own secretary, finally breaks under the guilt, shows up at Fletcher's kitchen with the real meeting minutes, recordings of Karen coaching her on what to say, proof that Karen's been blackmailing her over her grandson's legal troubles. She's got it all: handwritten votes, voice memos, emails, even receipts for all the community improvements that never happened. That's when the cavalry arrives. Samantha files for an emergency injunction, our forensic accountant launches a full audit, and Michelle Santos from my insurance company, married to a local TV reporter, go figure, confirms Karen's been filing fake claims on every house she's house at, raking in $40,000 and counting. Rebecca Santos, the reporter, puts the whole mess on the news, and suddenly, Karen's story isn't about protecting the neighborhood. It's about embezzlement, fraud, identity theft, and one very angry oil worker who's got nothing left to lose. By the time Karen tries her final play, calling an emergency board meeting to vote my house out from under me, Gladys has rallied the neighborhood. 200 angry homeowners pack the community center, folding chairs in the parking lot, TV cameras everywhere. Karen shows up, tries to bang her gavel, but can barely get a word out over the crowd demanding financial records, an audit, and her immediate resignation. The real show starts when Sheriff Martinez and an FBI agent step in, arrest her mid-meeting on charges of fraud, breaking and entering, and bribery. Turns out, she tried to pay Deputy Kowalski $5,000 to plant drugs in my truck. Yeah, that happened. The sound of handcuffs echoing through the room was better than any standing ovation. The neighbors cheered, people hugged, even the skeptics smiled. For the first time in years, Willowbrook Estates felt like a community again. 3 months later, I'm sitting on my dock at sunset, drinking a cold beer that tastes like freedom, while Fletcher grills burgers and half the neighborhood gathers for what we now call Good Neighbor Day. Karen's in prison, stripped of her real estate license, court-ordered to pay back every dime she stole. The HOA's under new management, Fletcher and Gladys at the helm. Full transparency, no more clipboard tyrants. Our dues dropped 30%. We got a new community pool, and Karen's old house is now a resource center for folks fighting HOA abuse across the state. Rebecca and I, we're dating now. Turns out, fighting for justice is a pretty good icebreaker, and she's got a knack for making sure the good guys' stories get told. Her new series triggered HOA reform in 4 states, and Netflix is filming a documentary about the whole saga. Every week, I get letters from people across the country sharing their own HOA horror stories, some more heartbreaking, some hilarious. We started a foundation with my lawsuit money to help folks like me, because if there's one thing I learned, it's that bullies count on you staying quiet. The moment you speak up, they lose their power. So, here's my ask. Drop your own story in the comments. I read every single one, and who knows? Maybe your Karen is about to meet her match. And if you want more true stories of justice served, well, you know what to do. Hit subscribe, ring the bell, and remember, justice is contagious when good people refuse to stay quiet.